pleasure and it's a real honor, especially because you have created a fantastic company. It's in more than 40 countries in the world, so I think we have a lot to learn today from Helen Doron. Here is your microphone.
It's a pleasure to be here. And I look forward to getting to meet you and hear how you're doing and how your business is moving on, and if I can be of assistance, that's wonderful.
So we always start our startup grind by going very back in your memories, in your childhood memories actually. So we just want to know, what were your dreams when you were a kid, and what were your family doing? What were your mom and dad professions? So we just want to understand if entrepreneurship is a trait that you get from your family, or it can even start later. It's not genetically coming from your family.
Okay, my parents. My mother was a housewife when I was a child, and my father worked with his father in a business. It was called Colibri Lighters. It was Colibri of London. It was a very well-known business, a household name in London in those days. My father didn't succeed in what he was doing, and he ended up driving a taxi, but that was after the divorce. And my mother then became a teacher, which is what she'd always wanted to do. So entrepreneurship is in the family, but not everyone succeeds at it. It has to be realistic. My grandfather was an extremely realistic, hard-headed entrepreneur. My father had dreams, and he didn't know how to get there. So it's very important to be down to earth.
And what did you want to become when you were a kid? Like, what were your dreams?
Nothing strong. I wanted to be an actress. But then I decided that people would be jealous of me, and it could be very harmful to me. Even as a young kid, I had this impression, so I gave up on that dream and I just floated along.
So, just like the teaching English language, do you think that entrepreneurship skills can be taught to people? Do you think it's something that is born with us, or it can be learned? How did you start your entrepreneurship journey?
Oh my God, I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. Nor did I want to be a teacher. Both things were very far from what I wanted to be. I didn't want to be anything really, I just did what interested me at the time. I went to university to study French because I had a French boyfriend. I had a French boyfriend because my teacher at school hated me, my French teacher, and she made my life a misery, so I decided that instead of disappearing into a shell, I was going to show her how good I could be. So I went to France for the summer. And of course, when you go to France in the summer school, everyone speaks English. So I decided that I would get the only French person on the campus, and that was the sports teacher. And we were together for 5 years, and I spoke excellent French. So I went to university to study French, and then there was a lecture on linguistic science, which blew my mind, and I thought, wow, that's what I want to do. And I studied linguistic science. But you know, life's like that. I was meant to have gone to a different university, but I turned it down because I liked the campus on this university, which seems to me, when I look back, a crazy decision. Why would I do such a thing? But life takes you where it's meant to take you.
So, can you share with us the first steps? How did you start the business, or how did you come up with the idea?
It was sort of an accident. People stumble on many accidents or many ideas, but most people don't notice them and just keep walking. But I stumbled on this one and noticed it. I was a lecturer at a university in France. I taught English language. And then I followed up on a gut feeling and an intuition and went to Israel. I'd never been there before. I met my husband. We were married in a few weeks. Why? Because I always got tired of men really quickly, and I wanted to make sure I married one this time before I got tired of him. And he was also very insistent. So we got married very fast. We're still married. And we moved to a village on the top of a mountain. After a certain while, it was a completely new village. It was very pioneering. There was no electricity even when we moved into this new house with a dirt track of 12 kilometers that wound round around the mountain. But there were 7 of us the first year, 7 families. It was a village of people that did transcendental meditation. And I had a 4-week-old baby in my hands. So I tended not to think, I just used to sort of go forward. When my daughter was 4, we already had 3 children. She was number 3. She had 2 younger brothers. And I took her to learn the violin by the Suzuki method. Have you heard of the Suzuki method of playing an instrument? Dr. Suzuki, Japanese medical doctor, who's also a very passionate violinist. He played with Albert Einstein as well. And he believed that every child should do music, and he believed that the violin was the most wonderful instrument, and he taught children aged 2 by teaching them to play, not to read notes. He said, music is a language. You don't teach a language with reading or writing, you learn to speak first. So learn to speak music first. And the language of music was something that the children heard at home every day. They came to the class, and with a lot of positive reinforcement, they felt incredibly successful, however badly they played. And they were motivated to move on. And I said, what's wrong with us? We have the language of music. Why aren't we teaching language like this? We're only teaching music like this. We should be teaching children to learn language like that. I said, I'm sure somebody's doing it. It's so obvious. So in this pre-internet time, 1984, 85, I started to look around the world. And I called people. I had books on early development doing quite amazing things, and I wrote to everybody. I phoned everybody, whether they were in Japan or in the States, and everybody who knew everybody. Nobody had this method, and I thought, this is crazy. So I'll create it. I created cassettes. I suppose you're too young to know what a cassette is. We created cassettes. I played on the piano and sang, and I recorded rhymes and stories for the children. It was according to a certain syllabus that I had, a general syllabus. It sounded absolutely terrible, but I didn't have to listen to it, they did. And it had the language in it. And every 2 months we went on to a new cassette where they knew everything that was on there. They heard at home while they were eating, playing, going to bed. They came to the class, and the children in the class learnt with the teacher who'd been specially trained in positive reinforcement and in the materials. At the beginning it was me, later on it was others. And when I started, the children did so well, 1 to 6-year-olds, that the mothers of the 8-year-olds and the 10-year-olds and the 12-year-olds all begged me to take their children. I said, this is ridiculous. They're learning in schools. And no, my 6-year-old knows more than my 12-year-old. And they asked me to come from 200 kilometers away to teach. And I said, no, I have 3 young kids. So my husband and I quickly realized we had a business on our hands. I guess maybe it was an entrepreneurial nature I didn't know existed. But I was also fortunate, as circumstances would have, that my husband had a business that he wasn't that passionate about. It was a small agricultural business. And he threw his weight behind me in the logistics and the finance. And I focused on the materials, training teachers, teaching, and marketing and sales. Like you all do for your own businesses. Actually, somebody many years ago at the Ministry of Export in Israel, I gave a talk there on entrepreneurship. And somebody in the audience said, listen, we're all entrepreneurs. We've created something. We've created an industry or an idea, and we're the creators, and we're running the business, and we're doing our development, and we're running the business. How do you manage to fit it all in? I said, that's really easy. You do the business during the day and the development at night. So that's the way it was at the beginning. It was very, 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 very hard work, especially with 3 young kids, but I balanced it. There was a school bus that took them to school and back. I went home with them for lunch. We had lunch, they did their homework, or they went to play outside. It was a village. I went back to work. And that's the way we balanced it. I had a meditation room next door. I went to meditate, came back to work. So life was pretty balanced. It was okay. Sometimes I worked too hard. When I had a deadline, I could work incredible hours, and then I wasn't balanced. But in general, I tried to keep a balance. And 15 years after I started, in which I think my teachers were making more money than me, because the way it worked was that I started to create new teachers. I was the teacher trainer. There was only me. And actually it was in other countries as well. We had agents in Germany, we had an agent in Austria, we had teachers in Israel, and we weren't making much money. We were just making money from the sales of materials. And I made 2 changes at this point. We had a lot of experience. We had quite a few learning materials, but not much. We didn't have a 10th of what we have today. Not a 100th, I wouldn't even say. But number one, I understood I was giving a service beyond the materials, which we couldn't afford to give because they were just paying. They weren't paying enough for the books to allow us to give the proper service. So I started to charge royalties, which I'd never done before, for the IP and for the usage of the IP. And I also started franchising. Now, did I hear about franchising and say, well, that's the model for me? Unfortunately not. I'd had many business consultants and none of them were worth anything. Really, when I think about it today, they all took a little corner and started to ask me questions about a certain thing. They didn't lead me into a business model that was the one that was needed. But having examined what was happening in the business and how people weren't being serious, our agents would come and go, and then what happens to the students, what happens to the teachers? I said they need to pay for the right to use us, and then they won't get up and go. They will be committed because they've made a big commitment to begin with. And that's what we did. I gave my first contract out, which explained all the conditions, and the person came back and said, my lawyer says this is franchising. And I said, oh no, it isn't. But then when I looked at it again, I discovered that I'd reinvented the wheel. One good advisor could have saved me years of suffering. Anyway, so that was how the business started. And that's how we got to franchising.
So one of the problems that franchise businesses have is saving the same quality actually that they have. So how did you make sure that the centers that were opening all over the globe had the same quality that you actually wanted to have?
Well, we've had a few different models, but the model we came to quite quickly in franchising was that there are master franchisees in the different countries. In a region, if it's a big country like Poland or Germany, there will be many, or Italy, many different master franchisees for areas of about 2, 3, 4, 5 million each, and they have learning centers. And these learning centers have branding guides, they have manuals, so they have operational manuals, and they have other guidelines that they have to follow. The pedagogic excellence is done through my inner circle of teacher trainers. These are teachers who worked with us for many years. They've worked through many learning materials. They're inspiring people themselves, full of enthusiasm and energy. I mean, if I had half the energy that some of these teacher trainers have, I mean, people say you're energetic, but you should see these trainers. And they're out of this world. And they are trained to be trainers. We meet once a year for a whole week in a group to work on new materials, on new ways of training. They inspire each other and they inspire me. And this is the same. We have an English franchise which we work with in Albania. It's our main franchise, but it's the same for our mathematics franchise, Math Riders, and it's the same for our academy and Helen Doron Academy franchises as well. So the teacher trainers are essential. Teachers are trained in trainings in which you can fail. You can fail these trainings. You have to work very hard. And they have ongoing seminars to learn new materials in which to make and to refresh yourself and to innovate yourself. So these teachers need to inspire the children as well. So there's levels of inspiration all the way along. But the wonderful thing is that the children give back energy to the teachers as well. So it's a circle of energy that keeps going.
That's great. Just to summarize it a bit, because we talked about different phases of the business, the starting, a bit the maturity and the franchise. So if you could divide your business into different phases, can you mention which are the challenges for each phase? For example, in the starting, you have to wear many hats. Sometimes you really don't balance the life between family and business. The customer acquisition, and then in other phases there are other challenges. Can you share it quickly?
It depends on how much financing you've got. We weren't financed. We sort of financed ourselves. We had a little bit of financing here and there. I've never had an investor, not to this day. I think there's been no investors. We've worked on our own capital, and I didn't really start with any capital. Israel gave us, because I was in a peripheral area, we had a very small grant to begin with. But at the very beginning, it was myself, my husband, and a secretary. Next stage, we took on somebody for finances. Next stage, we took on someone to run the logistics. The logistics for us was selling the learning materials, because each student needed a student set. This is the business model. You need a very clear business model from day one. If you don't know how you're going to make money, it's not good. Well, I'm saying that, although I've seen other businesses that I looked at, like Amazon, and I said, what's their business model? They're not making money, I understand it, but I still look at them today. Some people's business models are things that weren't comprehensible to me, like, I'm not going to make any money, it's going to be a free service, but I'm going to make it on advertising. This was a new concept for me, and not one I worked with. But for me it was very clear. Every child really does need a learning set. At the beginning, the learning sets had 4 books and cassettes in it. Later on they had 4 books and CDs, and then they had the CDs. And today we have a streaming device with all our audio and video media for the students on it. So it's gone through very many different stages of product, but it was clear to me that the main income was the product. And it was clear to me that actually the teachers were going to sell this product. Later on it became, at the very beginning, we didn't have learning centers. At the very beginning, it was private teachers. Individual teachers that did this. They came along and they sold. I couldn't make money from this. It just didn't move enough. They needed too much attention. Everybody did it. We were surviving, but in bare survival mode. Again, when I understood how a good business model, which was franchising, then it worked. The moment I had the right business model. I can't emphasize enough the need for the right business model, but sometimes it doesn't appear immediately, and sometimes you're not ready for it immediately. I couldn't have started with it because I didn't have sufficient experience or IP, or I hadn't built it up. I had to start slowly the way I started it up. So, but other people, maybe this is not the case. Everybody is going to be very different. But a clear business model is an absolute essential.
You say that, of course, everyone is different and everyone does business differently. But do you think there are some traits of successful entrepreneurs? What are some strong points that you have doing business during all these years?
Today the buzzword is grit. Just keeping going. Just keeping going. As long as you believe in this business, as long as you believe it's a useful service, as long as you believe it's something you have a passion for, you have to have passion and you have to have grit. And if you don't have either of those, you're not likely to succeed. Unless you're just really lucky and you'll be able to move it. But the average person, and I was the average person, needed to have this passion, this vision, and the very hard work. I was sure it was going to happen, and it had to happen, and I didn't know how it was going to happen until I found that business model.
So your husband has been your partner in crime in all this journey. Did you have any other mentors or people that inspired you in this journey? So what are some people that you are grateful for where you are in life and in business now?
My husband was my helped me in the very start-up phases, where I didn't know where to start with the finances and the logistics. When it grew, we took on professionals to handle it. Today he deals with the technical things. He's still around the business. Who have been my mentors? Who has inspired me? Well, as I said, I was inspired by Suzuki. I was also inspired by a physical therapist called Glenn Doman, who I read all his materials on early child development. And he took children and adults, but mainly children, who were severely brain damaged, and through various methods of brain stimulation, turned them into geniuses. And it happened not once, and not twice, and not 10, and not 100 times. So he had a system, and I used a lot of the methods. I wanted to have the very best childhood for children. I felt that children's childhood was being wasted by goo-goo, do this, do that, and just parents just trying to bring their kids up until they got to school and they could let them go and start to be educated. For me, main education was until they got to school. I taught them early reading, early maths, all the techniques of Glenn Doman. And I put these things into my learning material. My passion was the people who inspired me, and I stand on their shoulders from the educational point of view. However, today, one good consultant could have gone through all the different business models that could have pushed me forward and said, let's examine them and see where you'll get to. Not one did it. Not one did it. So I would advise you, if you don't know your business model, to start looking into that in depth. Do research, think of all the different things, talk to people, talk amongst yourselves, discuss it, because that is the vehicle that can push you forward. And sometimes it is an existing model and you don't have to invent it or spend years trying to think about how to do it. That was my experience, that I had my passion. I never thought of becoming a business person. But at a certain moment, I realized the potential. At the moment when I started training teachers and I held the seed in my hand, I could already see the tree.
So how many years in business until now?
37.
37. So during these 37 years, which are some emotional, beautiful moments that you had? Not only in the business, but even in your personal life.
Nothing to do with the business?
Even the business.
Obviously, my personal life is with the children and the grandchildren, but in the business, I think as a teacher, I've been very deeply moved by seeing results, children who couldn't speak English or they'd given up on them in school doing really well. I had one child, his name was Doron. He was 11 when he came to me, and his father said he doesn't know English at all, but he's learning it in school. He doesn't seem to know anything. So this was the very early days, I think we were looking at 1987, 1988. So I said, okay, I'll give him one private lesson a week to do schoolwork. He'll do one lesson with his age group, with the learning materials we had from his age group, and he'll be my helper in teaching the little kids. We did this for half a year, but every lesson he came to, he kept saying, I don't know, I forgot my homework at home, I forgot my homework at home. One day he was ill, but I didn't give up on him, so I went round to his house, and I said, this is it, you can't say you've forgotten your homework, we're here. And he said, 1 minute, let me just go up to my friend and get it. So he came down, I said, why did your friend have it and you didn't? He said, I'm not allowed in the English classes. I said, why aren't you allowed? He said, because I have learning disabilities and they teach me Hebrew at the same time. I said, well, when and how will you get integrated into English classes? And he said, next year or the year after, they'll just put me in the class and hope I do something. I said, this is crazy. These people should be locked up for cruelty to children. And I taught this kid for about a year and a half, 2 years, until I closed my centre down to focus on the business. And the main business, because I couldn't run a learning centre and the house under this at the same time. I've met the father many years later in a supermarket. And I said, well, how's your one doing these days? And he said, well, how did he do in his school leaving exams? He said he did really well in English, and he told me the mark, and I said, wow. And I said, well, who was his private teacher after me? And he said, nobody. I said, how come? He said, when he got put into all these different sort of types of English class, some of there's the top, there's the middle, there's the lower, and there's the lowest, according to the ability. He was almost in the top, but they wanted to put him into an average one, but he argued and he asked to be put into a higher one. And he said, no, Helen says I can. This was years after I taught him. All he remembered was I was telling him that he could. Now, I couldn't remember that. For me, he'd been inspired and encouraged, and he really felt empowered, and he knew he could. You don't know what you're going to say that's going to empower somebody. You don't know your influence on anybody, or what you can say that's going to influence somebody. So make sure you always help them bring out the best of themselves. Whether you're talking to yourself, or whether you're talking to others.
Thank you for sharing the story. Did you have any moment when you said, I quit this business? Or can you share just some challenges and what are some mistakes that entrepreneurs usually do along the way?
I never really wanted to leave. There were moments when I thought that the finances were completely finished and I couldn't pay staff. The small staff I had, this was in the first years, and that we couldn't make it through. But somehow we got saved at the last minute. Whether it was a friend or my business manager in Germany because I opened a centre in Düsseldorf at one moment in order to be in Central Europe in order to be able to start working from there. He managed to get a big pre-order of materials and to save us at a certain moment, or whether we suddenly got the loan that we wanted from the bank at the last minute through all sorts of going through back alleys. We've had our backs been against the wall, and I think that made us into a very lean enterprise. Our main challenges were financial, much more than anything else. I always knew where I wanted to go. And I've had some wonderful people walk along with us. But the moment we started franchising, it solved the problems. As I said, I had no finances.
So what are some mistakes that young entrepreneurs do in their early stage of businesses?
as I said, I believe that many don't have the correct business model. They have to understand if they've got IP, and they have to make sure they register it. They have to work closely with a lawyer. And I'm not talking about patents. Most people do not have patents. Does anybody here have a patent that they work with, that they've created? I don't know what sort of businesses we're looking at here today. But we're not talking about patents. If you've got IP that can be registered in any way, copyrights, make sure you write the copyrights down. Make sure you're working in the correct way. If you've got contracts, make sure they're good. Don't save on legal. It'll come back at you. I honestly don't know what to say, because my business is a very specific one. You do need finance. If you don't have enough finance, don't live above your means. Keep it very lean, keep it small. You'll find that you become extremely creative with a very small staff. If you have to be everything in your business, be everything in your business, but don't live above your means. Don't promise things that you can't financially fulfill.
Education is key, I think, in everyone's journey. So what are the values that you promote in your centers all over the globe, and what advice would you have for teachers to raise a happy, fulfilled generation of kids?
Okay, my goal was always joyful excellence, to bring up the children with the most joy and happiness, because I have a holistic sense of life and of business, and I think I run my business in a holistic manner as well. My lifestyle is, I was many years vegetarian, today I'm vegan, for the animals, for my health and for the planet. I believe that we were born here to spread joy, and we should be joyful people, and we should do our best to be joyful, and make sure we don't harm ourselves, other people, or other species. And these are values that we promote throughout our learning materials and in the centres, and you'll see it in everything we're teaching. Obviously we don't preach at people, but their values are there, and they're very important. And today, if you come to visit my business, you'll see that we have a vegan canteen and everybody eats together. It's not just because it's when do people meet at business in a company? Well, over lunch. Otherwise, they don't have the opportunity to meet. And we have a chef that comes in every day and he cooks for everybody. So people feel they're not sitting there with sandwiches, or running out at lunchtime to look for something to eat. The food's there. The drink's there. The chef will bring up a cake. They feel very fulfilled. We're not Google. We don't have ping pong tables. We don't have exercise rooms. We don't have the space. We might have otherwise. I'd love to have a gym there, but we don't have the space. We built our own building actually in 2006. We inaugurated it, and we're very happy with it. We're in an industrial area. But yes, and we grow vegetables on our outside and on our balconies, and the vegetables are eaten. Not only those, they're not enough, but it's a holistic feeling of being, because job satisfaction is very important. People come to work, not everybody fits in. Some people, this is not the company culture that they feel they're part of, and these people will move away sooner or later from us. But for other people, this is where they want to be. They feel that they're being taken care of by the business, and I'm very grateful for whatever they can give to the business, and I think this is very important.
That's great. I want to talk about something that I think every entrepreneur struggles with, the balance that we talked a bit before, between personal life, family, yourself, your friendships, and business, actually. So, do you have a system that have helped you to reach this kind of balance? can you share with us your routine? So how do you wake up in the morning? Do you have any specific routine?
Actually, I do.
What is your typical day? How does it look like?
Okay, well, I'm a teacher of the Transcendental Meditation technique. So my day will begin by doing, obviously after I've been to the bathroom, by doing Transcendental Meditation. I do advanced techniques. For me, most people will do 20 minutes twice a day. I do about 3/4 of an hour to an hour twice a day. And that's a long time. When the children were little, it wasn't that long. And then I do Wim Hof exercises of breathing. I do it for health reasons. You've heard of Wim Hof?
No.
Yes.
Yes. He's known as the Iceman.
Yeah.
Wim Hof, I think he's Dutch. He has breathing exercises which oxygenize the cells in your body. I've only been doing this for about half a year now. It's quite new. But I break the ice and I go into zero ice for about 5 minutes. It's like an ice cream freezer, but we fill it with water. And that's very invigorating, it's very healthy. And it has very good health. I do it for health reasons, I'm just not doing it for fun. There's this moment before you go in.
What does it help with, health-wise?
There's a lot of research on it. It can get rid of all sorts of health problems, including cancer. It's been known to reduce and to eliminate cancer. Immune system. Wim Hof himself is such an expert that they injected him with diseases, and his body just rejected it. But that's him. It's not us, not him. So that's my routine, and then I go for a swim. I have a swimming pool. And then at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm just joking, and then at about 9 or 10 in the morning, I will go to work. So I'm not an early morning person. Some of my employees may arrive at 6 or 7 in the morning. They can do that. That's not me. I'm there till late at night. I'm the last one to close the place up. I also have rescue dogs. I rescue old dogs. My husband and I, at the moment we have 5 geriatric dogs at home. Some of them come to work. We take the ones that no one else will take. And that's also part of our lifestyle, very much so. One of them is called Jumbo, in case you wondered, but he's really, really, really big. I mean, he takes up half the floor in the house. But it's, so that's my lifestyle, and I'm learning Korean as well. Korean.
That's interesting. And I have a last question before I go to some very quick questions. So, what is the dream you haven't achieved yet?
Oh, I'm just starting. I feel like I'm coming towards the end of stage 1 and just starting stage 2. May God give me many more years. It's what my dream is the best education for children. So what we're achieving in our academies is my real dream. We have academies in Turkey, and we're starting them now in the United States because we're doing the same thing in Spanish. Helen Doron Espanol will be starting soon. Bilingual teaching of children from age 1 to the end of elementary school, and it's a whole school program. It's framework that the United States know. They have many franchises. It's quite often good that when you start a business that you can fit yourself into a model that exists, because you can also create your own model. Helen Doron English was a completely new model, and it obviously had new content, but the business model was one that people didn't know. Franchising was known, the business model, but if, for parents, it meant in their mentality, you can fit it into an existing model. Like in the States, it's quite common for parents with kids as young as 6 weeks sometimes, to put them into places so they can go back to work. There's no real maternity leave in the States, would you believe? Quite incredible. And for me that's far too young, but anyway they do it. But we're opening up academies from year 1, so the parents can put their kids in this academy at 1 and take them out to the age of elementary so they can go to middle school, high school, whatever they call it there. So we're fitting into that model there. We were in Ukraine as well with academies. We're not there anymore. The children are all over the place. And we have Helen Doron International in Korea, which is all English, not bilingual education, which the kids do the most amazing stuff. You should see these children. And this is what excites me. And we've created special science programs. The music, it's the songs that I think I went into business for the music and the songs. I'm just pretending that I did it because I'm an entrepreneur. It's for the songs. I wanted, originally I enjoyed singing them. Now my daughter does most of the singing. We bring in other professionals and rappers and things like this. My daughter's a musician and she helps me greatly today. She's our media manager. My middle kid runs Helen Doron Korea, and he married a Korean. But he first married the Korean, then went to run over there. And my youngest one is in a high-tech startup in Israel. He's a doctor of physics, and he's in a medical startup. So I know a little bit about startups from here. Is anyone else in a medical startup? No? Okay.
Okay, great. So going through some very quick questions. So you answer just with one word or just with one sentence, and then I'll give the microphone to our community for some
questions. Can I say pass? Is that an answer?
Sure. If you had a superpower, what would that be?
What would my superpower be? Wow. Bliss and happiness for everybody.
Great. Which entrepreneur inspires you?
Goodness. I didn't really study entrepreneurship. I know my son was very much inspired by Richard Branson, but he was the one who inspired him. I don't think I had a business person who inspired me.
Favorite book?
Favorite book? Goodness, I'm going to be very corny and say that I love The Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and all the fantasy.
Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Oh, I should have read the question. No, I didn't. They were not my favorite movies. I'll come back to that one.
Great. Favorite sport?
Favorite sport, swimming.
What is your biggest fear?
Pain. Physical pain.
Your usual happy place?
Inside of me.
What advice did you take from your parents that changed your life?
Pass.
Maybe my mother said to me when my daughter was born, don't meet her head on.
Don't meet?
I mean, don't meet her head on.
Okay.
I mean, don't meet her head to head. Go round it.
Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and Jack Ma are coming for dinner. What's on the menu?
Plant-based food, vegan food. Obviously.
Would you travel in the future or in the past?
I wouldn't go back. I'd go to the future.
Would you like to have the ability to fly or to be invisible?
Fly.
Would you rather control or read people's mind?
I'd rather be able to read people's mind.
Would you rather be 5 years old or 70 years old all your life?
I pass. Neither.
Would you like to talk to the animals or to speak all the languages of the world?
Speak to the animals.
Would you rather lose all the money you have earned this year or all the memories of last year?
Oh. I can't afford to lose all the money I've earned this year. I'm not there yet. Otherwise I would say all that, but I can't afford it.
Would you rather know how the world began or how it will end?
I'd rather know how it began.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm giving the microphone to our community if anybody has questions. Haydi girdiniz tisketor.
Okay, once again, hello. It was a really nice fireside chat. I guess we had a lot of new things to learn, to understand. We've been following Startup Grand events quite often, but every speaker has its own particularity. And we really enjoyed this. We started enjoying since there because you chose the food, I think.
Yeah.
And the vegan food was nice. And I asked immediately who chose the food today. It was a really nice choice. I had a question in terms of your life choices about meditation. Because we quite often hear it from many successful entrepreneurs and many successful people that they practice this type of discipline. I myself have made some small efforts, but haven't found myself in it. And I am really curious, how does it help? If you can mention some things, or has it affected your, let's say, success, this choice that you have made?
Okay, I'd like to start with a short analogy. When you're sitting on a plane, they always say if there's an emergency and the gas masks come down, first put yours on and then put your child's on. If you want to be good for others, first you have to be good in yourself. You can only give what you have, so you need to increase what you have. I was attracted to the transcendental meditation technique after I heard an introductory talk which explained to me that that it improved life on 4 levels: the mental level, the health level, the physical level that is, the social level, and on the level of world peace. I was interested because I was, as a teenager, very politically involved. I was trying to change the world from the outside. And I'd come to the conclusion that nothing was going to change until people changed. Because the people couldn't live the philosophies that they were promoting. And I went and I heard that there was 700 different independent published scientific researches done on the transcendental meditation technique. And on the mental level, it gave more clarity, it gave the ability to focus while seeing the wider picture, it gave the ability to calm the mind as well, and people's intelligence increased, and many, many other researches. On the physical level, it showed that when you start to meditate, the metabolic rate goes down by about 16 to 24%. Now in the deepest sleep, metabolic rate goes down by 8%. This means that the rest being received by the physiology is 2 to 4 times deeper than in the very deepest sleep. And that means that deep-rooted stress can be released. And they showed health benefits for practically every single form of illness that there is. And on the social level, showed that people interacted better and they had much more to give, because you can only give, as I said, what you have. And people want to give, they're overflowing. When you feel good, you want to give. When you feel bad, you don't want to give. So people were overflowing, and they showed the effect of many meditators in towns on the overall effect it was having on crime, hospital entries, road accidents, etc. So I went for it and I learned and I never looked back. It took me time personally to feel the results, but I looked back after 8 months and I was normally at the doctor every 2 weeks about something. And I hadn't been to the doctor for eight months. I thought, whoa, something happened. And then I started to learn more. And so for me, this has been a very effective technique. Many big people, many great people do it. I believe, I know he's not very popular at the moment, but I believe even Elon Musk does transcendental meditation, as do many of the great people, many of the actors in Hollywood do it. Seinfeld, his name is? Seinfeld. He gave a talk once, he said it's when you go out to activity after meditating, it's like leaving the house with a phone that you know is fully charged. You don't feel it's going to run out. And so you go out with all that energy and you know you have the energy to give. And because that's what you've done, you've plugged yourself in the morning. So this is a technique that I'm sure you have it in Albania, that I personally recommend. It's not the only technique in the world. I believe it's the most effective and that's why I do it. But each person finds their thing that's going to ground them, give them energy, give them health, give them a wide view of life, so that they can be more successful people. It's a basis.
Can we do it ourselves, or we need the help of a professional? Because I think Gertie, me, other people, we just start to do it, and of course, because we don't see results, we just think it's not for us.
Have you done it? Have you done the course?
Of course, no. I just tried many times to do it, and sometimes we just think it's not for us.
Transcendental meditation is a very specific technique, and it can't be taught from a book, unfortunately, because it's very subtle, and you don't want it to go wrong. And you learn it with you go to a lecture with a teacher. They interview you. They make sure there's no reason that you can't do this. And then it's a course which takes an hour and a half a day over 4 days. And at the end of that course, you're on your own. You don't need anybody. You can do it. You can come back for check-ins. You can go to lectures if you want to, or you don't have to. But you have it, and you have it for life. No one can take it from you. You get stranded on a desert island, it's you and your meditation. Okay? Something happens to you and you're stuck somewhere, you have your meditation. You're inside yourself. So this is something no one can take from you, have it for life. And for me, it was the biggest investment I ever made. The best one. First, invest in yourself. Look after yourself, and then the world will look after itself. But obviously, give back to the world.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Grind Tirana. It was really interesting, and I have a background as an English teacher. At least I studied for, but after that entrepreneurship was more exciting. Currently I'm running an outsourcing company, and I really felt your epiphany when you realized how wrongly is teaching being taught. And even today, unfortunately, or based on my experience in Albania, it's not taught in the proper way. And I realized that one of the elements you used, it was also by believing that people can do better and they have a potential that the current system is not promoting or is not getting out of it. So yeah, I relate a lot to that. So my question is, when you were about to go to the next level, to go to the franchise level, you mentioned that you were struggling to find a scheme, a system, franchise one. So did you feel at any point that you are going to fail, you are going to lose a big chance because you were seeing that this is working but not making money? So was there any
I think for a long time, yeah. It was very, very hard. I was really struggling. I was trying to build a house at the same time, and the house got stuck, and the house was standing there for 4 years without advancing. And children needed many things, and between that and everyday life, things got really hard, and it hit my health, it hit everything. But then we had breakthrough. We had breakthrough. And we had breakthrough because I didn't give up. I I knew it had to work. And I didn't know when. And as my family, I could see every time I went to England to visit family, they looked at me pitifully. You know, God, there she goes, you know, she's still struggling. When's she going to get a proper career, you know? I mean, and then there was breakthrough, and then they were all proud of me. So, yes, I felt it many times, and over many years. I did this for almost 15 years before I discovered the right business model. But there were I had a lot of fun on the way. I met a lot of great people on the way, and made a lot of mistakes on the way, and picked myself up again. I kept going, said, okay, I'm not going to do that again. And if I can remember examples, I'll tell you. But I remember that it was a matter of, and at the beginning as well, maybe I should have acted slightly differently with the people I worked with abroad, or I should have picked people better, or I should have seen warning signs. But I didn't, because I was learning and no one was there to teach me. I think this has been a theme in my life. But it's okay. Some people were meant to create their own backbone, and they're really strong once they've done that. So what doesn't kill us makes us strong.
Next question.
Good evening, I am Elena. I am a coordinator at the organization, a youth organization called Team Things.
What's it called?
Team Things.
Okay.
My question is, what is your suggestion for me to be capable to work with teens, adolescents, or the youth?
So I didn't understand. Didn't understand? To work with what?
Teens.
Teens.
Yeah, youth and...
Oh, wow.
Teenagers.
Well, youth, teens, you know, there's a lot of neurodidactic research today showing that how teens work, and they don't work, their minds don't work like ours. They work differently, and seriously differently. You know, at the teen age, there's a lot of pruning going on in the brain between the neurons, which means, you might have a teenage child like you do, and they promise something one night, they get up in the morning and you say, now do it, and you go, what? What are you talking about? No, not they've forgotten, but they can't remember really having committed or promised or done, or they've literally changed their mind. Their mind has changed. That pruning, if something's happened at night and they've literally woken up with a different mind. And that's happening all through the teenage years, right into the early 20s. I think it's the frontal lobe that's still being developed. It's not fully developed. So there's a lot of judgment that they can't really make yet for themselves in the correct manner. They need, in order to properly learn, teens need something called deep processing. That means they need to be part of whatever you're doing. You can't just tell them to do it. You have to create an activity in which they can deeply process it and integrate it and think about it and criticize it and come to conclusions. They need to be able to work it. Activities, challenges, and they need to create posters and talk to each other about it. If you're trying to teach something, make sure it's deeply processed. They have to like you. If they don't like you, they're not going to want to work with you. They're not going to be a role model. They're not going to feel comfortable. They're going to feel stressed with you, and they don't learn when it's stressed. Did you know that teens' bedtime's not the same as ours? What is it called? Not cortisol. What is it that the hormone that you have for sleeping?
Melatonin.
Melatonin. It starts, for their start around midnight. Ours starts around 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Seriously. And it goes on until about, so they're meant to go to bed well after midnight. And whereas we're meant to go to bed 9, 10, 11 o'clock when it's still there. And yet they have to get up early in the morning to go to school. Destroys them. It's really, it's not ours for teens. It just works completely different for teens. There's so much. I've actually made a video on it, and of course I don't remember the details of everything. It's not my great expertise, but I did do a lot of research with other people, wrote it down and created a video. Maybe we could make it available so you could watch. But teens don't think like us. Okay? It's very important to do things differently and to look into the neurodidactics of teens. And if we can share that video in any way, that might be helpful.
Thank you very
We'll
much.
talk about it. Okay.
One last question.
Hello, my name is Dea. I'm a student in business administration, and firstly I'd like to say that it's an honor being here and listening to everything that you just said. I'm amazed by your work throughout the years, and I can confirm that music helps you a lot with everything. Like, it helps me a lot with my studies and everything that I do in my everyday life. So I had a question that I want to ask you for. Like, can you give an advice for me or people who would like to learn probably a new language like Russian or Greek that have a different kind of alphabet? Like, how can we help with memorizing things more faster? Like,
What language do you want to learn?
Russian? I like some Russian artists.
Well,
and
first,
I'm
you have to fly there. I'm just joking. Get a Russian boyfriend. Just joking. Okay. Basically, the way we teach language is, whether it's teenagers or youth or young children, is we do a lot of background hearing at home while they're doing something else, so that the language is in their mind. So if you can get audio tapes and play them while you're doing the housework, brushing your teeth, doing something and not paying attention to it, and then if you have a class, if you have a lesson, when you can go to the lesson, you'll have all the sounds in your heads, what you need to learn. It'll just make it a lot easier. And of course, music and songs, play them, learn the words, do it. I believe in having a teacher. That's my belief. I'm learning Korean with an online teacher, once in a blue moon when I have time.
Fellowship.
Fellowship? What does that mean?
I think it's important to have a
So
fellowship. when
you need to
practice.
have people to talk to. Okay, so maybe you have a group of people that you can talk to and be with and be motivated. To learn a culture, you have to like something about it. The language doesn't come on its own, it comes with culture. So there have to be things that you like about the culture, and you have to have a reason for wanting to learn it. So find yourself the framework, but this background hearing is very important.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing the story from the heart. And I think many of us were inspired today to do more or to not quit in their businesses. So I want to thank our special speaker, the way we waited for her on the stage by standing up and giving a very big applause.